So, Heather McDonald studies crime. She studies race in America, law enforcement. She looks at the numbers. She is the author of The Diversity Delusion. And she joins me once again back on the story again tonight. Heather, good to see you this evening. You know, first of all, as you listen to all of that from the candidates and from the media, what goes through your mind?
What goes through my mind, Martha, is we are getting an absolutely false picture of America. Of course, this violence is appalling. It strikes at the very heart of our civilized society here. But America is not a white supremacist country. The left profoundly misunderstands this country. White supremacy is a fringe movement condemned across the board. Americans are big-hearted, compassionate people. People of color the world over are beating down the doors to try to get into this country because they know they will be safer here than in most places on earth. The left knows this too. The left is the epitome of hypocrisy. It is encouraging mass migration from third world countries, people of color, to come into this country. If the left believed what it is pumping out in this poisonous propaganda, it would tell people of color the world over not to come to the United States. Let's look at the numbers. The numbers back up this picture, Martha, that this is not a country riven by racism or white supremacy or white nationalism. Those numbers are all over the map. Everybody has different counts. The official hate group monitors are very quick to label something as white supremacy. Let's remember in 2009, when Army Major Nidal Hassan killed 13 people and wounded another 30 at Fort Hood. The government refused to characterize that incident as Islamic terrorism, even though he had been radicalizing for years. But let's look at the numbers that we've got. The FBI reports in 2017 an 11% increase in hate crimes when you account for increase in reporting. Blacks are 50% overrepresented among perpetrators of hate crimes. Whites are 26% underrepresented among perpetrators of hate crimes. The same goes for mass shootings. Blacks are 50% overrepresented among perpetrators of mass shootings. When it comes to identified white supremacist incidents, according to one source, there were 17 white supremacist homicides last year. That's 0.01% of all homicides in this country. It doesn't even register.
I mean, I think when people look at what happened in El Paso and Dayton, I think the American public is heartbroken because of the loss that these families suffer. And I think that's something that gets lost in, you know, the sort of crazy back and forth over the name calling for what happened. But, you know, one of the things that they point to is that in El Paso, the manifesto included words about the invasion of Mexicans and Latinos into our country. And they point to that and they say, well, the president has said the same thing. Therefore, it's the president's fault that this man decided to take this gun and go to Walmart and kill 22 people.
Well, as he said himself, this awful killer that I hope he gets the death penalty very quickly, he said this is not motivated by Trump. You know, we're used to this strategy on the left from academia. It categorizes any policy that it disagrees with as hate speech and bigotry. Trump has not used racial terms. He is an opponent of open borders. He has a good faith disagreement with how the left has been running this country when it comes to immigration. He has never advocated for violence against minorities. This is absurd. You know, by one count by the ADL, there were a little over 1,000 instances of white supremacist propaganda distribution incidents, 1,000 last year. That compares to the daily rhetoric coming out of universities that we are a white supremacist, white privileged, toxic masculinity country. That is the ideology that governs our society today in every mainstream institution. As you say, Martha, there is not one word of encouragement for this madman who was hate-filled, but he does not represent the American people.
I want to just play one quick exchange on CNN, which I think demonstrates sort of the encouragement of that narrative. He was speaking to a Republican leader in El Paso who's a Hispanic background man, which he explained to himself when he was giving his answer. Just listen to this and then a quick response on the other side, if you would, and then Marianne Williamson is going to join me.
How on earth can you call that a hoax?
White supremacy is not a hoax, but that doesn't mean it's a national, very large group. There are pockets of radicals from any type of focus that you want to look at all over this country.
What do you think about that?
Well, of course, that's right. Again, we are not a white supremacist country, Martha. Every institution condemns this. The American people condemn this. Their hearts are open. If you want to see a radical ideology, look at what's coming out of academia that is telling white males across the country that they are worthless. That is creating enemy. It is creating a sense of resentment, but it is not leading to violence. The violence problem in this country, if you want to save lives, you go into the inner city and you work on policing and make sure that the people committing drive-by shootings are off the streets. There's 11,000 gun homicides a year, overwhelmingly committed by drive-by shooting, by street crime. The number of white supremacist killings, as awful as they are, in every single killing in this country, should not exist. It is irrelevant. If you want to save lives, support the police, and care about the inner city victims who are the overwhelming victims of gun violence in this country.
Right. Well, you spent several years in ride-alongs with law enforcement in inner cities in this country, documenting all of this for people who are not familiar with your work. So, Heather, thank you. It's good to see you tonight. Thanks for being here.
Thank Martha.
So here now, exclusively 2020 presidential candidate Marianne Williamson. Marianne, thank you. I know the weather is crazy out there, and you've been traveling.